We shall never know peace. At least when it comes to the WNBA space. It was this ad that Angel put out. And I don't know if this is part of a larger campaign where it's going to be similar themes in similar places. But because of where the WNBA All-Star Game is, and because of who plays on the Indiana Fever in the home city of the WNBA All-Star Game, it's going to raise some eyebrows.
Angel Reese thought she had the perfect plan. All-Star Weekend, a signature sneaker. Flashy billboards planted right in Caitlin Clark's hometown. Everything lined up to crown her as the WNBA's next marketing queen. But as the weekend unfolded, the glitz turned to silence, the cameras turned away, and fans weren't buying what she was selling literally. Her I'm in Your City campaign, meant to dominate the streets of Indianapolis, quickly turned into a punchline.
Literally, debut. It's got to be when she plays Caitlin Clark. So they obviously ended up debuting at All-Star Weekend because Caitlin didn't play when they were in Chicago, and Caitlin didn't play, or Caitlin's not playing in this game, so they're debuting at All-Star Weekend. The plan was to literally go and use Caitlin Clark for the launch of it. And I'm like,
Angel.
Ticket sales plunged, ratings crashed, and her Reebok shoe drop landed with barely a whisper. Even worse, the entire campaign felt less like a confident rollout and more like a desperate attempt to latch onto someone else's fame. Now, with the numbers out and fans speaking louder than any press release, the truth is impossible to ignore. This wasn't a flex, it was a flop. And Angel Reese is feeling the pressure like never before.
It's very clear that one side is absolutely trying to milk whatever rivalry there is. Whatever rivalry there is, it is one side trying to do everything they can to keep it together.
From the outside looking in, Angel Reese appeared to be playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. She had the stage, she had the brand deal. She had All-Star Weekend happening in one of the most basketball-obsessed cities in American Indianapolis. And more importantly, she had what she believed was the perfect opportunity to launch herself into superstardom. Her game plan wasn't subtle. The goal was to dominate headlines by aligning her signature sneaker launch with the biggest event of the year. Timing was everything.
Shouldn't Angel Reese be able to market herself at this point without invoking or even, insinuating some sort of attachment to Caitlin Clark?
The moment had to feel big, so she made sure it did. Reebok joined the play, rolling out 2 bold colorways for her shoe demand, Dust and Mabouncend, launching a full-scale ad campaign built around the idea of owning the city. Billboards towered across downtown.
How's everything? How's your coverage and everything going?
It's good, it's good. I'm still... Angel! 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 Angel!
Instagram was flooded with promo clips. The message was loud. Angel Reese wasn't just showing up to All-Star Weekend. She was taking over. But here's the problem: none of it was built on organic excitement. It was all stagecraft. What should have been a celebration of Angel's personal achievements quickly revealed itself as something else entirely. The entire campaign felt designed not to showcase Angel's journey, but to plant her squarely in Caitlin Clark's shadow. The choice of Indianapolis wasn't accidental. The messaging, "I'm in your city," wasn't just general hype. It was a direct, unmistakable jab at Caitlin Clark.
If I'm being honest about it, people say that moment, and that moment was huge. It will live forever. That moment will live forever. But Caitlin Clark was on this trajectory already.
Who happens to play for the Indiana Fever. That's where the strategy started to unravel. Instead of inspiring excitement, the campaign triggered skepticism. Fans started asking the obvious. Why is Angel building her moment around someone else's turf? Why not let the product speak for itself?
There's no comparison between y'all two. You hear me? And she has a $28 million Nike deal. Nike is better than Reebok last time I checked. And Angel, me bound pray up Reese. Last time I checked, you said Indianapolis was racist and they was dangerous. Why did you show up? Because you could have just watched from the Crisium. You hear me? So let me tell you this. Please stop associating my precious Cece with the trap. She don't know what a trap is. At the end of the day, she might know what a rat trap or mouse trap is, okay? But anything else other than that, please do not. No.
The optics weren't subtle, and neither were the reactions. The campaign didn't position Angel as a rising force. It painted her as someone trying to borrow shine instead of earning it. And even worse, it did so at a time when the very person she was targeting, Caitlin Clark, wasn't even expected to play due to injury. Reese's rollout wasn't just about the shoe, it was about sending a message. I can dominate headlines, just like Caitlin. But star power isn't something you declare. It's something the public gives you, and only if you've earned it. What Reese misunderstood was the difference between presence and influence. Being visible isn't the same as being wanted. Fans might see you everywhere, but that doesn't mean they care. And when your spotlight relies on someone else's shadow, it only takes one misstep, like Clark sitting out to reveal the entire strategy as hollow. Angel Reese's entire all-star marketing campaign revolved around one statement: I'm in your city. It was bold, it was loud, and it was everywhere. Plastered on billboards across Indianapolis, blasted through social media clips, and captioned under photos with her Reebok sneakers. It was meant to signal dominance, a takeover. A declaration that Angel wasn't just attending the WNBA's biggest weekend, she was claiming it. But what started as a clever branding move quickly spiraled into something else entirely. A tone-deaf publicity stunt that fans saw right through. The phrase itself, I'm in your city, was a clear reference to Caitlin Clark. That much was undeniable. Indianapolis isn't just any city. It's Clark's home base, where she's filled arenas, sold out games, and transformed the Indiana Fever into a must-watch team overnight. By placing herself in Clark's backyard and framing it as a conquest, Reese wasn't celebrating the all-star moment, she was hijacking it. And fans were quick to notice the difference. To make things worse, Caitlin Clark wasn't even playing in the game. Days before the event, she was ruled out due to a groin injury. While Reese was gearing up to launch her takeover, Clark was sitting on the sidelines, unable to respond, unable to compete. That's what shifted public perception from bold to opportunistic. It felt like someone showing up to a race only after their competitor got injured, then demanding a victory lap. The intent may have been to look powerful, but the execution reeked of desperation. The backlash was swift. Social media lit up with criticism. Fans accused Reese of clout chasing, calling the campaign a forced rivalry and a marketing gimmick built on absence. Others mocked the idea of taking over a city when the fan favorite wasn't even suiting up. One post summed it up perfectly. You're not walking into the trap. You're walking into an empty room and shouting that you own it. And the numbers didn't lie. The hype around her campaign didn't translate into real momentum. Ticket sales dropped. Interest fell. Even the energy around the billboards felt manufactured. It wasn't that fans didn't know who Angel Reese was, they just didn't believe in what she was selling. The attempt to seize attention came off as calculated rather than captivating. Worse still, the campaign alienated some of the very fans Reese was trying to win over. By framing her presence as a challenge to Clark, especially while Clark was injured, Reese positioned herself as a rival without the rivalry. It lacked substance. There was no face-off, no game-changing performance. Just posters and slogans in a city that wasn't hers to claim. In the end, I'm in your city didn't come off like a power move. It felt like a borrowed costume, worn in the wrong role at the wrong time, and when the spotlight turned on, it didn't highlight her strength. It exposed the cracks in a marketing strategy built more on noise than genuine connection. The turning point came quietly. Just a few days before the WNBA All-Star Game, Caitlin Clark was officially ruled out due to a groin injury. What should have been a minor development quickly became the domino that brought Angel Reese's entire campaign crashing down. Reese had built her all-star weekend strategy around proximity to Clark's spotlight, her ads, her billboards, her messaging. Everything depended on Clark being in the building. But once the biggest name in women's basketball was sidelined, the air got sucked out of the room, and Reese's rollout had nowhere to go. This wasn't just about a player missing a game. It was about the WNBA losing its main attraction. Clark's presence wasn't just expected, it was essential. Her impact on ratings, ticket sales, and media buzz had been undeniable all season. She was the reason people tuned in. The reason? Arenas filled up, The reason fans who had never watched women's basketball before were suddenly glued to the screen, and now she was out wearing street clothes instead of a jersey. Suddenly, the takeover that Angel Reese had hyped up felt empty. There was no face-off, no rivalry moment, no one to steal the spotlight from, and without that tension, her campaign lost its anchor. The billboards in Indianapolis no longer looked bold, they looked awkward. The messaging didn't feel confident, it felt hollow. Angel Reese had stormed the gates of a city whose queen wasn't even home, and fans weren't buying into the performance. Ticket prices told the story faster than any press release. What was supposed to be a high-demand event saw resale values tank almost overnight. Prices dropped from $121 to just $64 the moment Clark's absence was confirmed. That's nearly a 50% plunge, and it sent a clear message. Fans weren't paying to see Angel Reese, they were paying to see Caitlin Clark. Without her, the All-Star Game lost its draw, and so did Reese's marketing machine. Reese found herself in an impossible position. She couldn't pivot the narrative fast enough, and the league didn't have a backup plan. What should have been her moment to shine was now a glaring reminder of just how much weight Clark carries, not just for the league, but for everyone trying to share her spotlight. And this isn't just a Reese problem, it's a WNBA problem. The league had bet big on Clark's popularity, and when she wasn't available, the entire house of cards started to wobble. That's the danger of building a campaign around someone else's presence. When they disappear, so does the magic. Reese's marketing strategy didn't collapse because she failed. It collapsed because it depended entirely on someone who was never part of the plan to begin with. And once Clark was ruled out, Reese wasn't stepping into the spotlight. She was standing in the dark, with nothing left to say and no one left to watch. If there was ever a moment that proved Caitlin Clark's influence on the WNBA was irrefutable, it came when the numbers dropped in hard. The 2025 All-Star Game wasn't just another showcase. It was the league's most hyped event of the season. All the biggest names were there: A'ja Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, Breanna Stewart, Angel Reese. But the one name that wasn't on the court, the one name that made all the difference, was Caitlin Clark. And the data painted a picture that was impossible to ignore. In 2024, the WNBA All-Star Game brought in a staggering 3.44 million viewers. It was a cultural moment. Social media was buzzing. Headlines were everywhere. Advertisers were thrilled. The league had momentum, but fast forward 1 year, and the viewership nosedived to 2.19 million. That's a brutal 36% drop. Nearly 1 out of every 3 viewers disappeared. And there was no mystery about why. Clark wasn't playing. For Angel Reese, the fallout was even more painful. Her entire campaign was meant to piggyback off the buzz of a record-breaking event. She anticipated riding a wave of attention that Clark had generated the year prior. But instead of surfing a surge of energy, she was drowning in silence. With Clark out, fans tuned out too, and those who stayed. Many weren't buying into Reese's attempt at seizing the spotlight. They came looking for Caitlin. And when she wasn't there, they didn't stick around to see who else might try to fill her shoes. The WNBA attempted damage control. Officials tried spinning the numbers by comparing the 2025 viewership to the 850,000 viewers from 2023, conveniently skipping over 2024's historic numbers. But fans weren't fooled. They knew what had changed. Clark had arrived, lifted the league, and just as quickly exposed how fragile the ecosystem was without her. Reese's marketing blitz, no matter how loud, wasn't enough to sustain interest, and her own performance didn't generate the viral moments needed to shift the conversation. What made things worse was that Reese wasn't just part of the Drop Her campaign, was framed as the replacement hype. She was supposed to be the new face in Clark's absence. The I'm in your city branding, the flashy Reebok rollout, the Instagram takeovers, it all felt like an audition for stardom. But when the curtain rose, the audience had already left the theater. Even worse, fans weren't quiet about it. Social media echoed with comments like, "No Clark, no care, and this isn't an all-star game, it's an empty stage." The fallout wasn't just about numbers, it was about narrative. The message was loud and clear. Star power can't be forced. You can't manufacture the kind of excitement Clark brings naturally. And when you try, especially with timing that feels opportunistic, the backlash doesn't just simmer, it explodes. In Reese's case, the numbers weren't just bad, they were humiliating. The more the league tried to pretend everything was fine, the more obvious it became that without Caitlin Clark, the lights dimmed, and no Billboard could brighten that up. Angel Reese's "I'm in Your City" campaign was supposed to be her boldest flex yet. Instead, it became the internet's favorite punching bag. The backlash wasn't subtle, and it didn't take long to go viral. While the league tried to salvage the narrative, social media users tore it apart in real time. What started as a confident rollout turned into a digital disaster, with fans mocking, remixing, and flat-out clowning Reese's entire stunt, the centerpiece of the criticism. Her use of trap imagery and language in a city known for its ties to Caitlin Clark. One clip in particular, where Reese strutted through Indianapolis to the caption, "Walk in your trap, take over your trap," quickly went from intended power statement to meme material. The problem wasn't just the phrase, it was the implication. Reese wasn't just showing up in Indianapolis, she was claiming territory while Clark, the actual hometown favorite, sat sidelined with an injury. It didn't come across as competitive, came across as performative, maybe even petty. Comments flooded in. "You can't take over a trap when the real queen ain't even in the building." Another fan wrote, "She's marketing a rivalry that doesn't exist. Clark's not even thinking about her." Some mocked the irony. Imagine trying to take over a city where ticket sales plummeted the second your rival was ruled out, and perhaps the most brutal of all, there are more photographers than fans at her shoe drop. Ouch. The trap narrative backfired hard. What Reese may have viewed as a clever cultural reference was received as a desperate attempt to manufacture attitude without substance. She wasn't winning over new fans, she was polarizing the ones already watching. And instead of being the hero of her own story, she got cast as the villain in a drama no one asked for. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark never said a word. She didn't post a response. She didn't comment on the campaign. She didn't need to. Her silence became its own kind of dominance. Fans interpreted it as focus, as maturity, as the sign of someone who doesn't need to clap back because the numbers and the game already speak for her. In contrast, Reese's high-energy self-promotion felt like noise in an empty room. The memes kept coming. Edits of Reese missing layups, paired with her promotional footage, clips of her trap ad-spliced with footage of empty stands. A viral soundbite of a fan ranting, "You want to take over her city? You couldn't even take over a fast break." The internet had turned the campaign into content, and none of it was flattering. This wasn't just a failed marketing strategy. It was a complete public relations implosion. Reese had tried to plant a flag, but ended up digging a hole. And in a digital world where every moment is dissected, memed, and magnified, her takeover became the cautionary tale of what happens when confidence isn't backed by authenticity or results. While Angel Reese's "I'm in Your City" campaign spiraled into chaos, one party remained unusually quiet. Reebok. The brand had bet big on Reese, positioning her as the face of their women's basketball push. Her signature shoe, the Angel Reese 1, was hyped as a cultural reset. But behind the polished ad spots and vibrant colorways, something felt off. And as the All-Star weekend unfolded, it became clear even Reebok wasn't fully confident in the campaign they helped build. It started with a strange silence. Unlike Nike's relentless promotion of Caitlin Clark, Reebok didn't flood media with Reese interviews, behind-the-scenes footage, or meaningful athlete storytelling. There was no push to connect fans with Reese's personal journey, no compelling narrative beyond slogans. It all felt surface level, flashy on the outside but hollow underneath. And when the backlash began, the brand didn't step in to clarify, defend, or redirect the conversation. They simply let it play out. One moment, however, revealed what they may have really been thinking. In a Netflix sports docuseries called Power Moves, cameras caught Shaquille O'Neal, Reebok's president of basketball, discussing Reese's gear requirements for her matchup against Caitlin Clark. The subtext was impossible to ignore. Even behind the scenes, the brand seemed more concerned with aligning Reese next to Clark than building her independently. This wasn't about crafting Angel Reese into a self-standing icon. It was about proximity, about using Clark's light. To reflect on Reese, that's not a knock on Reese alone. It's a telling glimpse into how even the people who signed her seemed to acknowledge the obvious. Reebok wasn't sure she could command the spotlight on her own, so they tried to tether her launch to the biggest name in the league. But when Clark got injured, the plan unraveled, and instead of recalibrating, Reebok stood still, watching the campaign get swallowed by public mockery. Meanwhile, Nike's approach to Caitlin Clark offered a stark contrast. Clark's $28 million deal wasn't just about shoes, it was about legacy. Every part of her rollout told a story: the hometown pride, the fan connection, the underdogged superstar arc. Her Nike Kobe 5 Pro Trope vanished off shelves in minutes. Fans weren't just buying a shoe, they were buying a piece of a player they believed in. Reese's drop, on the other hand, came and went with little excitement. It wasn't that fans hated her. It's that they didn't feel connected to her brand. Reebok had a rare chance to build something real, but instead of leaning into authenticity, they gambled on shock value. And when the shock wore off, nothing was left. In the end, Reebok's silence spoke volumes. The brand had the platform, the athlete, and the moment, but lacked the belief. Not in Angel Reese as a person, but in Angel Reese as a solo draw. And when even your own sponsor hesitates to push your story, the message is loud and clear. The hype might be loud, but the trust isn't there. For Angel Reese, the All-Star Weekend wasn't just about the game, it was supposed to be her defining business moment. The launch of her signature sneaker, the Angel Reese one, had been carefully timed to dominate the conversation. The hype machine was in full gear. Reebok rolled out flashy campaigns. Reese showed up with matching fits. Social media was flooded with product shots. But when the dust settled, one uncomfortable truth became impossible to ignore. No one really wanted the shoe. The launch fell flat. Despite the bright colorways and bold messaging, there was no sellout moment, no long lines, no buzz from sneakerheads. In fact, the campaign generated more memes than sales, unlike Caitlin Clark's Nike Kobe Pay, which vanished from shelves. In minutes and started reselling for over $600, Reese's shoe was still sitting online, untouched, discounted, and ignored. And it wasn't just a product issue, it was a perception issue. People don't buy shoes just because a company tells them to. They buy because the story behind the athlete moves them, because the performance backs up the branding, because the athlete has built a real connection. And that's where Reese's rollout crumbled. Her campaign didn't feel earned, it felt engineered. She wasn't riding a wave of support, she was forcing one. And fans could tell the marketing leaned more on flash than substance. It shouted, "I'm a star," without showing why. Instead of tapping into her roots, her struggles, or the authentic moments that made her who she is, the messaging focused on takeover language, aggressive imagery, and one-sided rivalry cues. It didn't feel like someone launching a legacy. It felt like someone trying to manufacture one. And the price didn't help. The Angel Reese one was retailing at a premium, but there was no demand to justify it. Some fans were stunned to see versions listed online for nearly $1,000, just months after release pricing that raised eyebrows and left people asking, what exactly are we paying for? Especially when her on-court performance didn't align. With the superstar packaging, highlight reels showed missed layups and awkward plays, not dominance. There was no viral game-winning shot, no performance that had everyone talking, just marketing, lots of it. Worse still, the fan response became part of the problem. Social media users began poking fun at the sneaker. One viral post read, "Angel Reese won South." More like zero interest. Others joked that Reebok should have included a free ticket to a Caitlin Clark game with every purchase. It became clear that the shoe wasn't seen as a symbol of greatness, it was seen as an attempt to copy a formula that only works when the foundation is real. A signature shoe is supposed to represent a moment, a movement, a legacy. For Angel Reese, this release ended up representing something else entirely, a rush to the spotlight without the game to hold it. The Angel Reese one wasn't just a flop, it became a case study in how not to launch a brand. By the end of All-Star Weekend, the stage that Angel Reese tried so hard to own became the very spotlight that revealed everything she wasn't ready for. What started as a calculated marketing takeover ended in a painfully public unraveling. The truth had become impossible to ignore. You can't build star power. By standing in someone else's shadow, and you definitely can't fake the kind of fan loyalty Caitlin Clark has earned. The deeper problem wasn't just in the strategy. It was in the assumptions. Reese and her team seemed to believe that marketing alone could manufacture cultural relevance, that with enough slogans, city takeovers, and shoe drops, the public would fall in line. But fans today don't respond to noise. They respond to substance. They show up for players who perform under pressure, who connect with communities, who elevate the sport with every game. And when those elements are missing, no amount of branding can cover the gap. What made the failure sting even more was the contrast. While Reese was plastering Indianapolis with "I'm in your city" posters, Clark was quietly recovering from injury. She wasn't seeking the spotlight, yet the entire narrative kept circling back to her. Even from the bench, Clark dominated headlines. Fans were still checking in for updates on her health. TV cameras kept cutting to her reactions in the stands. Commentators couldn't stop referencing her absence. Meanwhile, Reese was on the court, in the ads, in the headlines, and still somehow not the center of attention. Then came the reactions. Fans called it a desperate clout chase. Others described it as a crash course in humility. But perhaps the most cutting commentary came from the numbers. Ticket prices plummeted. Ratings fell by over a third. Engagement around Reese's campaign dropped off a cliff the moment Clark was no longer part of the equation. It was as if the entire campaign's energy had been rented on. The lease had expired. To make matters worse, Reese took to social media after the weekend with a message that, while likely meant to be gracious, only poured fuel on the fire. "This was the most fun I've had in a while because of the players. Shout out to y'all." Back to the regularly scheduled program. The emphasis on the players didn't go unnoticed. Many interpreted it as a dig at the fans, or worse, a passive shot at those who criticized her performance and her campaign. What the All-Star Weekend revealed wasn't just the public's rejection of a marketing push. It was a broader reckoning. Angel Reese tried to leapfrog into superstardom without laying the foundation. And when the lights came on, the gap between image and reality was exposed in full. In the end, this wasn't just a failed sneaker launch or a lukewarm all-star performance. It was a turning point. The moment when fans, the media, and even the brands paying attention realized that star power isn't given, it's earned, and no billboard can do that work for you. Angel Reese walked into All-Star Weekend ready to claim a throne. She had the shoes, the ads, the slogans, and a city-sized stage. But what she didn't have was the one thing you can't fake: authenticity. Without Caitlin Clark on the court, the buzz disappeared and the illusion shattered. The ratings dropped, the ticket prices tanked, the sneaker launch fizzled, and the very spotlight Reese sought ended up exposing how much of her campaign relied on someone else's shine. Fans didn't reject her because she tried. They rejected the strategy because it was obvious, loud, and unearned. The numbers spoke louder than any billboard ever could. Reese learned in real time that true stardom can't be copy-pasted. You can't just show up in someone else's city, shout into the mic, and expect the crowd to cheer. They cheer for consistency, for excellence, for real connection. And when the lights went out and the fans logged off, only one truth remained. Angel Reese tried to make it her moment, but the moment never belonged to her. It belonged to someone who didn't even have to play to steal the show.